And all this was fine during the early years. I think something happened to him as he began to approach 1972 and re-election. Another side of him appeared that I didn't see very clearly then, although in retrospect, having spent a lot of time studying it, I now realize what it was. He had a paranoid side to him. And the paranoid side saw enemies. Where Americans would generally talk about rivals, adversaries, and so on, he had this word, enemies, which meant something far beyond somebody who's just running against you for office. And so he began doing these quite weird things, like putting a group of people in the White House called the White House Plumbers, who were his own little police force, wiretaps, enemies lists, an FBI investigation of me. And in that respect, I'll tell you the two signal moments there. Enemies lists. The enemies lists were basically written around 1971 as it began to approach the 72 election. Their existence was not known out of the White House. We only got to know about it in 1973 when John Dean, who had jumped ship from the Nixon White House, testified before the Senate Watergate Committee about the existence of enemies lists. He submitted them in evidence but didn't read them on television. We, with the other networks, were gavel to gavel covering these hearings. I was outside, along with Douglas Kiker of NBC and Sam Donaldson of ABC, each talking into his own camera, talking about these enemies lists, but we didn't have any names. And I could hear in my ear from my producer back at CBS, get names, who, what? And eventually, as we were talking, somebody came up and handed each of us a list. I was on the air live. I didn't have time to look at this document before I started reading it live. And so I said, oh, here is the first of the there are numbered 20 names, numbered, and let's see, it is from John Dean to H.R. Haldeman, subject, unscrewing our political enemies. And I began to read down the list until I came to number 17. And 17, Daniel Schorr. Notation, a real media enemy. And then I don't know how I looked at it. I've never seen the tape, but I felt as though I was going to gulp and collapse. But I did manage to say number 18, Paul Newman, number 19, Mary McGrory, number 20, and now back to you. And broke into a big sweat. The idea of becoming that I was a part of the story that I was covering was really quite incredible.